Evacuation flights from Afghanistan's Kabul airport have resumed. This is after 2 bomb attacks hit the area, killing over 100 people. Several people are camping at the airport trying to flee the country. Let's discuss this. I'm joined now by Wits University's Professor John Stremlau to weigh in on these matters. Prof, thank you. So tough talk from Joe Biden after the 2 bombs exploded in Kabul yesterday. Of course, it came after there had been specific warnings from Western intelligence agencies. Tough talk? But what does it mean for the Biden administration and its approach going forward on Afghanistan?
Well, it's a little early, but it does point to the fact that the Taliban and Biden administration now have common cause. They don't want to be embarrassed by more bombings by ISIS-K, and therefore it may mean that there will be more vigilance over the process of evacuation, which only has another 4 days to run. Bill Burns, the head of the CIA, is in Kabul right now, so I think there's probably a lot of discussion going on.
Is it a sense, Prof, of shifting sands in terms of who the enemy is? And you talk about perhaps a common enemy, because this has been claimed by, I believe, an offshoot of ISIS in Afghanistan. But is it in a way an extension then of being involved in some kind of conflict by the United States, despite the withdrawal, that some kind of conflict will be ongoing? Because Biden had some tough talk, which wasn't really along the lines of George Bush's "will smoke you out," but it still amounted to more or less the same. I've instructed the CIA to ensure that we strike against those who are responsible for this.
Well, it's certainly the case that there will be intelligence gathering continuing, but also probably use of drones and other remote anti-terrorist actions that have been developed in the last several years. It's going to be extremely interesting to see how the Taliban engages this time as opposed to the 1990s. It's been a whole generation. You know, 2/3 of the Afghan people are under 25, and they don't know what the Taliban is like. But the Taliban itself is probably changed somewhat over the last 20 years. It's a very pregnant moment, but we just don't know.
How much hangs on the deadline for the withdrawal of U.S. troops altogether, which is, you know, in the next few days, really, the 31st of August, at the end of this month? How much hangs on that, and how the Taliban interacts with that particular deadline, especially in light of the numbers of people who still would like to leave Afghanistan, but also in light of what happened yesterday, the twin explosions?
Well, the short answer is everything hangs on getting out on the 31st, because the ISIS-K bombing was a tremendous embarrassment to the Biden administration, which, after all, has promised that the mission was accomplished of containing terrorism, and yet here is a terrorist strike that the Taliban was also powerless to prevent. So that I think it's in both of the Taliban and the U.S. interest to get this job done as quickly as possible, and I don't think there'll be an extension of it.
And the death of 13 U.S. personnel, I suppose, also will have implications for Biden domestically.
Well, of course, it's the first casualty since early 2020, and it's going to be a very real embarrassment to him politically and public opinion. But there's a short-term cost, and then the longer term, the country will probably move on. I don't think this is anywhere comparison to Jimmy Carter and the hostage crisis that the Financial Times has been talking about today. And I really think that this will pass in due course, but it's going to be very embarrassing in the short term.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time, as always, there, Professor John Stremlau, weighing in on the situation in Afghanistan and the implications for the Biden administration. A lot of countries re-evaluating and trying to see how to react to the rise of the Taliban in that country.